Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pregame Network Podcast. This is episode 113. I am your host, Dan, joined as always by my bestest pal, Anthony. Say hi, Anthony.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about video games today, and it's been a pretty eventful week, I think. I think we both know what the elephant in the room is, which we will get to. Yeah, we have a pretty stacked episode this week, and then I remember I told you I had a hypothetical question for you that airs more on the philosophical side of things.
Yes.
So I'm actually really interested to see what you have to say about that, but we will get to that after the what we've been playing this week block, which I guess we can get into right now. So, Anthony, what have you been playing this week?
I'll be honest, not too much outside the norm. I obviously have my rotation, been playing Helldivers, Rivals, Street Fighter. Not so much in the way of gacha outside of Genshin Impact. Just a little bit of everything. I tried to play some other Sonic games, mainly Sonic Lost World and Sonic 4, which are a bit older, but the problem is their PC ports kind of really suck. So unfortunately, Sonic Lost World, like, the controls are all over the place, and I can't make Sonic run. So that kind of like takes the fucking wind if he's just walking the entire fucking time. So that's a wash until I can figure out what's going on with the controller there. And then the controller just wouldn't work at all with Sonic 4, and none of the only keyboard options I had were confirm and move on the menu. So it's like, all right, I guess I'll go back to that.
All right, then.
At some point. But other than that, it's really just been my rotation. So not a whole lot here. That really put a damper on me going out and playing some other stuff. I was actually looking forward to playing The Lost World again, because I haven't since the Wii U was new.
Oh, God. All right, well, as far as I go, I mean, I've had my staples as well. Battlefield, Helldivers. I've been playing a decent amount of Darktide. I have not gotten the new class up to level 30 yet, but I am I think I'm at 26, so I'm pretty close. I am at pretty much the very end of Uncharted. That kind of took a backseat once I started playing more Darktide, and then I went back and I started playing a little bit more of Halo 3 from the Master Chief Collection, because we played a good chunk of Halo 1 Anniversary last week, which, I mean, we can definitely continue at some point this weekend.
Yes, absolutely.
But I just wanted to go back and play 3 because that's my favorite Halo game, just full stop.
Yeah.
Even now, like 20 plus years later, however long it's been,
almost
that game is just fantastic. It's so good. I was playing on Heroic and I was kind of getting my ass whooped. I need a buddy with me. But beyond that, that is pretty much all I've been playing this week. Been relatively normal, nothing really outside the norm. So yeah, with that out of the way, do we have any write-ins or anything?
No write-ins this week, no.
Okay. All right. So do you want to get to the updates first, or do you want my hypothetical question?
Ask me the hypothetical question, because, like, if you don't have a write-in, you may as well give me yours.
Fair enough. I also figured you'd say that, 'cause I get the feeling that you've been chomping at the bit to know what I was going to ask.
Of course.
So, okay. This kind of dawned on me after the Sony announcement of them leaving physical media in the past, and obviously we're going to get to that. There's a lot to go into there. But the thought that I had was, and I wrote it down, I'm going to read it verbatim, and this is aimed at you specifically. I'll tell you my answer once I hear yours. All right. So what would you do if the industry the world over switched to a streaming subscription model, i.e. in the vein of like NVIDIA GeForce Now? So obviously, let me just give you a little bit of context.
Yeah,
obviously, the industry is rapidly moving away from physical media, such as game discs and cartridges and whatnot. So much so that, like, Best Buy doesn't sell movies anymore. I think, honestly, at this point, it's a matter of time before they no longer sell physical game discs. But in for you in particular, Anthony, what would you do if the industry overall switch to a streaming platform such as Nvidia GeForce Now?
I guess I would spend the rest of my life playing older stuff.
I honestly figured that was going to be your answer.
Yeah, the go ahead, finish what you're gonna say.
No, please, you go.
The more robust answer, because it's a nuanced question, because it's a hypothetical with multiple things that go into it. Realistically speaking, if the industry got off of its ass and made things that I wanted again, I would potentially, maybe take 1 month out of the year to like dip into whatever's new, pay whatever fee they want to, just play for like 1 month out of the year. Yeah,
just to be up on what's current
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of caveats to that. Like right now, if like let's say overnight, just like that, it's all streaming. Can't buy physical anymore. It's like, well, what does the industry have to offer me? Nothing. Okay, yeah. If consoles like PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo just decided they wanted to do streaming consoles from now on, it's like I have my stuff on the PC, and then something that, and I'm sure it's going to come up later, something a lot of people say is like, well, what if Steam decided to do that too? It's like, if you somehow manage to eliminate all storefronts, make everything streaming only, and crack down on all foreseeable piracy ventures and stuff like that, I would still be able to, on this computer, have access to more games that I could possibly play if I stopped doing everything else in my life for the remainder of my life. It's just like, I think something, and again, this is going to come up later, I think something that a lot of companies and people need to realize is there is a vast majority of media to consume out there where I'm not beholden to an industry which is ultimately not doing that great to begin with, So I guess my rounded answer is to check in like once a year, and then spend the rest of my time gaming on older stuff that exists without these limitations and rules and all that kind of stuff.
That's fair. So as far as I go, springboarding off of your 1 month out of the year to jump in there and check out what's new, what's going on in the gaming industry, I don't even know if I would do that. I'm so vehemently opposed to that kind of a model when it comes to video games that I would most likely play whatever I had on my computer locally, and then I probably would not deviate from that, just from like a principle standpoint. I get that too. Yeah. I'm so opposed to that type of thing. Not even if, like, let's say for sake of argument, because like the big problem with game streaming in particular, at least for the vast majority of people, I feel like, is the input lag that you would get between pressing the button on the controller or the keyboard and then that action actually being executed on the game that you're playing. That's like the big problem, because we don't really have the infrastructure to support to replace like local PC and console gaming with a streaming service. So that's like the technical limitations, but just on a principlistic side, I would essentially boycott that whole thing, because if the industry ever switched over to something like that overall, that is such a dangerous precedent, and like we're kind of heading in that direction a little bit right now, or at the very least that's where these companies want it to go. I think I have more to say on that, but I'm gonna stick to your question for now as far as what I respond with. Don't take this as like I completely agree or disagree, but when we get to the topic later, I'll have more to say on it. Right, no, that's fair. So I think I would kind of check out overall. I don't think I would have any interest in newer video games. Something would really have to grab my attention. I would have to need to play whatever game that was only available on that type of a service, as opposed to me just sticking with playing the older games over and over and over again until I just kind of, I guess, died. Like I'm never going to stop playing video games. But I'm so opposed to a streaming service on a ethical, moral, and principlistic level that I would never engage with it. It would, like I said, the game or the product in question would have to be so appealing to me that I would like I would have to pay the subscription service to experience it, if only one time, and then go back to playing whatever I was playing at the time. I think it is. I think the gaming industry is heading in that direction, or at the very least, the big players in the space are trying to push it in that direction, especially with this AI craze that's been going on for the past couple of years. I just think that these companies are really trying to hedge their bets and push the core gaming community into that corner of pay for the subscription service and don't own anything and be happy. So that is my macro answer, and then I'm sure we're going to get a lot deeper into this once we start talking about Sony, because a lot of it does come down to like philosophical stuff and what we are willing and unwilling to participate in.
Yeah, and I should just mention, just because like you gave me, like, I looked at your question from a very logistical level. There's obviously multiple caveats that could affect my decision in one way or the other, including how we would even get to that point, which maybe I'd be more in line with what you said, where
that's why it's a hypothetical.
Just on principle.
Like, so many things that have to go wrong.
Exactly. It's like, are there games? Are the games good? How did we get there? What companies are involved and what practices do they, put into there? But it's just like, it's at the end of the day, traditional or even, entry-level digital stuff is kind of where I draw the line. The furthest I'd ever go is something like a Game Pass, and Game Pass was only ever for like, conveniences for games I already owned or games I wouldn't try otherwise, stuff like that. When it comes to interest in a game, like if I'm interested in something, I'm not going to have that enthusiasm if my option is to stream it. That's just like, that's not an appeal to me. You're changing the product at that point.
Yeah, it could become a very slippery slope, and just by virtue of us being in 2026 and the way that the gaming industry is heading right now, it is very apparent, especially if you are very into following the industry, like move by move, the way that we are. It's very apparent that these companies are really trying to steer the ship towards this model, and it's not like it obviously cannot be a one major move type of thing. It's got to be death by 1,000 cuts. That's the only way they would ever have a chance to do this. But that was my hypothetical. I was very curious to see what your answer was going to be, because like I said, after the Sony announcements this week, it's just kind of where my mind wandered a little, and it was a very daunting thought, if I'm going to be honest with you.
I get you.
So yeah, I was just curious. So anyway, with that out of the way, what updates do we have for this week, my friend?
We have two updates. One is just the ongoing layoffs and shakeups, as far as what's been going on with that. So we've there's no major singular studio for me to point to and say, hey, they just laid off like 500 people. That's probably not going to be until next week. That's when that hammer is expected to fall. A bunch of people are probably going to lose their jobs next week. There were a handful of smaller closures and layoffs in like smaller companies and stuff like that. I would say about, I don't know, like 150 people got laid off across multiple smaller things. As far as other shakeups go, IO Interactive announced that they announced that some investor, some partner they had pulled out of their project Fantasy, or there's something they had been incubating for a while. It was very quickly revealed that it was Microsoft and Xbox that was the investor that had pulled out. IO Interactive says that they will be continuing, or they're going to adapt, and they also announced that they were also letting go of some people. Primarily, they stressed it was redundancies, but I don't know, it's just another quiet smattering of layoffs. Other than that, I think, what is it? Some studio named Keywords Studios. I don't remember what they made. They laid off like 150 people just by themselves. So that's.
Did you see the projection that Microsoft is planning on laying off around 6,000?
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. Sounds about right.
I mean, no, it wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, it seems like every month or so, or every couple months, Microsoft in particular just like cleans house for whatever reason.
Yeah,
but again, it's not like they have the games to like to make the argument that they need all this manpower. So
that was a big thing we talked about 2 weeks ago about those specific, and I'm sure we'll do another one of those when we actually see who got cut and why. But like you mentioned, it's like it always seemed like every couple of weeks, every couple of months, Microsoft would lay off just a bunch of people, and there was like no rhyme or reason to it. The main reason is because of how Xbox was run to that point where like it was like everyone got a blank check. Everybody was going all in on anything but making games directly, so it was just at random. It's like, okay, we need to free up some cash, so they would cut like.
Imagine you're complaining because you don't make a game in a timely fashion, and you get laid off for not making said game. Just imagine for a moment, if you will.
No, that part was always crazy. But before that, it was just they were cutting at random to kind of free up those projects before this current ongoing thing. But that's pretty much as far as layoffs and shakeups. The last one to really note is that everybody's kind of eyeing Arcane right now to see if they're going to get like cold with the rest of the Xbox stuff that's going on. The only movement we have is that
somebody from okay, never mind. I'm sure you're gonna get into it again.
No, I was gonna say the only thing we have is that the current president has resigned, and that Jerk Gustafsson. How do you pronounce his name again?
I think it's Jerk Gustafsson.
Okay, from Machine Games is going to replace him. So now everybody's talking. Oh, maybe there's just some restructuring. Maybe there's some kind of merger. Who knows what's going to happen? But that's all we have on that front right now.
He's not leading both Machine Games and Arcane, right? He's just doing Arcane. You can't do both two studios.
We know next to nothing outside of the fact that he's assumed that position. Everything else is just guesswork, but we'll know for certain probably next week.
Yeah. Look, I still want a Wolfenstein 3. So just don't close Machine.
So that about does it with layoffs and shakeups, unless you have one that I don't remember.
No, that was it.
Very cool. Okay, so for our last update, this one is a little different. Dan,
yes.
At the beginning of June, we were asked a question about Pride Month.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, we had our thoughts, we had our opinions, we spent some time on that. Talked about it for like 25, 30 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it was a long conversation about that.
Now that we are in July and the festivities are over, I thought it would be interesting to kind of give an overview on how that went exactly.
I can't tell a single fucking difference from anything, the way that anything is run from the beginning of June till now. That's my answer.
Well, there you go. Now, I'm not going to be able to give you everything because I didn't this is perfect. Let me just track every studio in the industry. Like, I don't have that kind of energy or time to waste on something like this. But I can give us a little bit of knowledge based on developers, publishers, and studios, and some storefronts. If I decided that I wanted to do stuff like standalone events, streamers, content creators, wikis, communities, we'd be here all fucking day, and I don't want to do that. I'm sure if you go to pick out any random video game wiki and you go there, I guarantee you the logo will still be a rainbow thing because they just leave that shit up all year round. This is not going to be exhaustive, is what I'm saying. I can't see everything.
Thank God. Okay.
Yeah, but I can tell you what I saw and what I saw pointed out, right? And you mentioned it. I'll say it again. It was noticeably more subdued this year. It kind of aligns with what I said at the beginning of the month, where I said those celebrations had already kind of plateaued. Barely saw any profile pictures switch to rainbow colors. Barely saw any announcements. There are a few key standouts that kind of were going against the grain in that regard, though. The most active companies by far were Riot, Blizzard, and Digital Extremes also, which is very weird.
So Riot and Blizzard don't shock me in the slightest. Digital Extremes a little bit, but still not like anything crazy.
Yeah, I was the same way. Riot and Blizzard, I expected. I was not expecting Digital Extremes to almost match their pace. I think what it is Digital Extremes I think has a few people who are very invested in that, and a lot of this kind of strikes me as them noticing nobody else is really doing it, and them either ramping up to go around that, or maybe they're just getting frustrated about it. I don't know, because I think I mentioned when we got asked this question, because it was very early on, they made their thing for the first time ever. They were locking comments They were, muting
Yeah, not good
comments.
look.
You couldn't. Yeah, not a good look at all. I'll be honest, most of the, whether it's low-level creators, developers that were announcing, there weren't too many. They were like locking comments constantly. Like they wanted no discussions, just like Happy Pride Month, and then they would like run off basically.
Yeah.
I think Team Meat, the guys behind Super Meat Boy, I think they were arguing with people online over it. It was very, very, very bad
Even
look.
better look.
Yeah. But yeah, so games like League of Legends, Valorant, Overwatch, World of Warcraft, Warframe, and all the other games under these studios, they were doing either events, merchandising, charity streams, social media, that kind of stuff. I have a feeling, and don't smack me for this, I have a feeling that Bungie wouldn't be far behind if they weren't somewhere between burning down and a pile of ashes. I think they probably would have been up. I think they would have been up
I was gonna say something about Bungie, honestly.
Yeah.
But actually no, fuck it. I'll just say it. If there's one positive thing I can extrapolate from the implosion that is Bungie, it's the fact that I don't have to put up with their woke bullshit anymore.
That's one positive, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I think World of Warcraft took like a community event, made it official or something. It was some kind of like previous charity event that got adapted. I don't know. Basically, they were all doing in-game events, rewards, content, all that kind of stuff. Overwatch in particular always goes in deep because that's basically all their characters are now, because Overwatch never really got a story. So whatever they have going on in their love life, I guess, is their story. Something that's actually kind of interesting to me is that I did see a handful of companies do this like, it's kind of, I really don't know what to call it. Their events were titled in a way that's like somewhere between nervous and defiant.
Peacocking, maybe?
Maybe, like Humble Bundle ran a bundle for Pride Month, and the bundle was named We Will Always Be Here, and Microsoft was doing their thing in the background, like they always do. Every year they make Tell Me Why, that piece of crap narrative game, free. They're like, please buy this. It's about Pride, honestly. They had a campaign called Pride is Alive. Like, I saw like some of that signaling, almost like they're trying to like get a second wind going in it. So I guess they're acknowledging it. I think in general, there's an acknowledgement that things are waning. You mentioned last month that when this starts messing with the money, it's done. I mentioned that it is messing with the money. There was a survey not too long ago throughout the industry where like they like the return on investment was like down 39 to 40% when it comes to messaging in this way, the rainbow capitalism, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It has been acknowledged time and time again that people don't want this. Including a good chunk of the people you claim to be representing this way. Nobody wants it. So it was a pretty drastic wane this year. And there was
gives a shit anymore. It doesn't do anything for anybody. It just, it paints the people in that community to appear a lot worse than they might actually be.
And it emboldens the people that are in that community just because of the control aspect of it and the in-your-face aspect of it. So it's like I don't know. This really doesn't help anybody anymore. And the people who normally are like backing it or pushing it at the top, like the company proper, not the activists within it, they're just losing money. They're not invested. So just pull the fucking plug already. But yeah, I saw a lot of cancellations. I know Epic didn't run their event in Fortnite last year. The Jagex CEO for RuneScape, they canceled any new content, and they stuck with that this year. They just reran old stuff. So it's definitely on the wane. So whoever asked that question last, that's your bit of a follow up. However,
oh boy,
there are two more companies worth mentioning.
Right.
One, because it's just sad, and the other because I have more to say on that company, and it's going to lead into the topic that we're going to be getting into. Right?
Give me the sad one first. This should be good.
Now, try not to cry or laugh.
Okay.
When we talked about it, when I was describing this whole thing, I said we were past the point of companies jumping into this, right?
Okay.
Daniel, I was wrong.
Okay.
There was one company that embarrassingly dragged itself out to start pandering with official Pride merchandise and social media messaging where they had never done so before.
Okay, go on.
You get one guess as to what this company is.
Is it something in my purview?
You've heard yourself or me talk about it at least once.
Is it a fighting game developer?
That would be telling, Daniel. Just shoot your shot.
So that's a yes. Is it Arxis?
It's Arc System Works.
Hey, I got it.
There you go. Arc System Works decided that for whatever reason,
Oh, boy.
2026 would be the first year they dive in and show support.
You said not to laugh or cry, Anthony. Shame on you.
Shame on me. For the first time ever, years past the peak, years past when they started doing the stuff in-game to actually make their content worse for these specific things, they decided, I guess this year we'll make a couple posts on social media supporting these things, and we'll do Pride merch. Embarrassing. Embarrassing.
Yeah.
Late to the party for no purpose.
God.
Ridiculous.
We are talking like you really missed the ship. Oh my God.
Yeah. Embarrassing.
Yeah.
Now, this is the last company we're talking about, and it leads into what the first topic of the day, right? The other company to talk about, Dan, is Sega. Now, as it relates to the festivities and Pride and all that kind of stuff, they were pretty much by the numbers. Their mobile division, Sega Hardlight, they in particular always seem to be the most vocal about this. So they were making their posts, posting characters like Sonic, in support of Pride or stuff like this. Yeah, it was kind of, there was a chain of events and things that Sega got themselves into, but the one that relates to this, there was a particular event that kind of highlights one of the bigger problems around just Pride in general, and the preferential treatment and control based on, whatever identity happens to be in power, so to speak, right? There was a streamer, one of those VTuber types that apparently worked up to being accepted into Sega's official creator program, right?
Okay.
Now, I should just say, I think creator programs are kind of bunk to begin with. I really don't like them. It really just seems like they exist to create a small army of yes men around the company, but it's like, oh, you're a creator, you're with us, but you're really just there to remain positive about the brand. Otherwise, eventually you get the boot. Most of these have it written in the clause where you can't say certain things about the company or their products or whatever. But anyway.
It was like, I remember when Sony and Bungie were trying to promote Marathon a couple weeks ago, they gave all of these deals and sponsorships to a bunch of creators, but like they weren't allowed to mention Destiny at all.
Yeah,
or
and that's
speak ill in any capacity of Sony or Bungie. It's just
yeah. I'm not saying it's always a given to be as harsh as that, but normally written in the contract is for you to occasionally get acknowledgement or for you to be the official creator, you need to forfeit a great deal of, I guess, rights over your opinions, if that makes any sense, right? So I don't really put faith in this. But anyway, this creator, I think her name is Mia or something. I forget her name. There's the controversy I remember, but I can't remember these VTuber names. That was never my wheelhouse. She apparently posted this whole celebratory thing. She got accepted into it, and hours later, she was removed from it. Apparently, there was a whole harassment campaign online where people dug up a clip from one of her older streams where it's a long clip. I'm not going to quote the whole thing. We'd be here for a while. But in this quote that got her canned from the official Sega program, she basically stated a couple of things. She said she's not into the whole LGBT stuff. She's not homophobic. She doesn't agree with transgender stuff. She says it's harmful to yourself if you do it, and it's hurting others if you encourage it. And then she said there's male and female, and that's what you remain as whatever you're born as. Those are the things
what
she
exactly
said.
is wrong with that? What's wrong with holding that opinion?
You'd have to ask.
Sorry,
You'd have to ask Sega. So anyway, she was removed from the program. And like it would be one thing for a one-off thing. Like personally, it's just like just do your own thing. You don't need to be invested in these Sega. Just do your own thing. But the removal is unjust. So I decided to say to myself, well, I remember so many things about Sega where their social media stuff, their creators are kind of dog shit. So I racked my brain. Dan, you want to know what kind of stuff that Sega has officially condoned or hired or worked with in the past?
Sure.
There was one streamer who says that military personnel deserve PTSD for being military personnel. That's one. The official writers on the official comic tie-in for Sega, they had a section where they said, readers' recommendations, what the writers, the artists or illustrators, what they can put out and say, like, hey, you should go read this. Basically, pornographic materials to children was what this person was recommending. And on a lighter note, the Sonic brand ambassador for like nearly a decade was some washed-up Flash animator who openly stated repeatedly before and during his tenure that he hated Sonic the Hedgehog. That's like their bar, is like all these kinds of like either awful people, degenerates, or people that just don't like what you have to offer. Those are the people they'll be willing to work with. But on this particular issue, it can be in your own stream where you disagree or express anything that goes against the current ideas that are celebrated. You go against that, you're out. However, we will work with you and pay with you if you do any of those other awful things. So, and that's yeah, and
gross.
It is it really is. But that's the Pride stuff done with. Now let's get into proper, just like what Sega's been getting up to controversy wise, because Sega proper did like a multi-day charity stream with creators and employees to invest and donate to stuff. Apparently, this was also kind of used as a shield because they didn't really have any announcements for Sonic's anniversary this year. So they're just like, we're going to run this major thing, but you can't be mad at it because we're going to wrap it in charity and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of controversy around this. So I mentioned before that obviously like the Sonic anniversary kind of came and went and they didn't really do anything major. They announced some stuff for the current racing game. They announced a couple really light crossovers, but there wasn't really much going on there. They showed off Crazy Taxi World Tour, and everybody went from loving it for 10 seconds before saying, wait a minute, you use generative AI for the background images, so we hate you now. They did this ARG thing where it's just like throughout the United States you can help Sega and Sonic find the Chaos Emeralds from Sonic, but in order to take part in this ARG you need to sign away your rights so that they can use you to train AI. So it's been a rough month for Sega overall. Not a good look for a waning brand like that, but that's what's been going on with Sega.
Oh God, it's all. You hear about stories like this, and this is actually going to tie a little bit into Sony. We hear about stories like this, and like, I hear the story that you just told me, and I can't help but think of how do I put this? I'm not trying to get into a discussion about what I'm going to say next, but because you'll know it when I say it. The world in which CD Projekt Red cultivated with Cyberpunk 2077, about how like the whole world, or at the very least Night City, is essentially run by corporations, and they have their own term, that being corpo, which kind of has bled over into actual culture in like the real world today. I'm sure that Cyberpunk weren't the ones to coin the term corpo, but they definitely popularized it, in my opinion. And it really, really, really feels like that is just the world that we're living in now, where, sure, I mean, we have world governments who are the superpowers of the world and everything, but day-to-day life really feels like it's run by these big corporations, and that slowly strip away more and more of what you might be entitled to, or what you've earned, or anything in between those two. And it's a perfect point to transition into the Sony story, because they are now taking away physical media. And in the same fucking week, they put out a blog post that all the movies that people may have purchased from a very specific licensing company are just no longer in your library. Terminator 2 is one of those movies. I think Cobra is another one of those movies. There's a bunch of them, like really popular films that people could have purchased and bought and own on their Sony, their PSN accounts, but because of the copyright laws and the fact that Sony technically did not own the rights to these movies, they are just vanishing, or they have already been plucked from these digital libraries. And I think that is extremely disingenuous when you as a company get the privilege to use the language of buy, purchase, and own in your terms of service or your contracts. And look, I'm not stupid. People don't read those. Like, the average consumer will not take time out of their day to comb through those terms of service and understand exactly what they're getting themselves into. Yeah. However, Sony still uses the language of buy, purchase, and own in those same documents, but it's really not what it is. You're just leasing a license until the parent company, the ones who actually own the rights to this media, decide that you don't get to have it anymore. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying that it seems like our day-to-day life is really run by these corpos, and it's extremely disheartening, because it's just like another way that these companies could fuck you, and there is zero repercussions for it. And the biggest example that I've seen so far, which is pretty accurate in my opinion, I'm sure you will correct me if I am off base at all here, is that if I go to Best Buy, or if I purchase a Blu-ray movie off of Amazon and it ships to my house and I put it on my shelf, that is my movie. Like, it is local on the disc. I put it into my Blu-ray player or my Xbox or whatever media playback device that I own.
All the way back to your PlayStation 3.
Exactly. That can decode the video codec on these discs, and I could sit there and I could watch the movie without any type of service interruptions. If, like, my internet goes down, or I didn't pay my bill, or anything like that, like, barring power issues, if I pop that disc into my media playback device, it is going to play, it's going to run. I'll be able to watch whatever movie, or presumably any game. Well, no, not games, and we'll get into that in a second. But I'll be able to watch any movie that I want to. This is equivalent to somebody breaking into my fucking house, taking that hard copy of the disc and just leaving and not taking anything else. They don't tell me anything about it. And they just take the movie and they leave. And that, by any other definition, that's fucking theft. That is a burglar breaking into your house, taking your property and leaving, and not giving you any kind of compensation or refund for that product. Yeah. And that is essentially where we are in our digital lives right now. Yeah. These companies have the legal right to go into your digital library, take any movie or any piece of media that you own digitally, and just take it from you without any type of warning. Or, well, maybe there is a type of warning, but nothing that anybody really pays attention to. Mm-hmm. And there's no repercussions. There's no type of a refund policy, nothing. You're just shit out of luck. You spent $15, $20 on that movie. Guess what? You are never seeing a dime of that price tag ever again, and you will never get to watch that movie ever again on that digital library. In this case, it's Sony. It is such a shitty feeling to know that. And, like, thankfully, I have never subscribed to any type of, like, digital movie service in particular. Like, I have a vast digital game library, but I don't have anything really to speak of as far as movies go. I think I have, like, a very small collection of digital movies that I have on my account when, like when you used to buy Blu-rays, they came with a free digital copy. Yeah, the Ultraviolet or whatever it was called. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's what I have. It's like maybe 20 or 30 movies or something. Yeah. I don't know the last time I actually accessed it, but, like, that's still mine, right? Those are still my property, if I were to look at it from any other point of view aside from digital ownership or DRM. Yeah. And this is really where I'm taking this rant is when Sony announced they were pulling back from physical media, it doesn't really mean a whole lot as far as you owning the disc, and then when you pop it into your console, you can play it without any repercussions. That is not the issue in question. Like, I like to have my library of game discs on my shelf. I've had the same library since the PS2 came out. I have it's not large by any stretch of the imagination, but all the games that really meant something to me sentimentally, I still own. Shame on me, but I lost Jak and Daxter, the precursor legacy through the years, but I still own Jak 2 and 3. I still own Black. I still own Call of Duty 2, Big Red 1. I still own a handful of the Ratchet and Clank games. There's like a very small collection that I've hung on to over the years that I will never part with, even if they might be worth something, because I have such a sentimental attachment to them. And that is just not the case anymore. Like the gaming industry is pretty much it. Well, we have the figures. It's 80% digital, 20% physical. But now Sony is.
The one thing I will say is obviously you have more to say. Those numbers are fudged. So just
how
continue.
So? No, I'm glad they're fudged, but I want to know the why.
I'll get to it, but you should finish.
Okay.
What you're doing.
So the industry is clearly moving towards a digital-only future, and I think that has far more ripple effects than people are willing to acknowledge. These companies, especially. And I think this is really just the tip of the iceberg. And you can make the argument that, Steam has been digital only for decades at this point. While, yes, that is true, it is not exactly apples to oranges. I could also download a 20-year-old game on Steam and still play it today like I did 20 years ago. And that really wouldn't be the case going forward with Sony because of the way that they handle their DRM. And we'll get into DRM very, very soon. But I just kind of took this and ran with it because I was kind of talking about it from the previous point.
I'm actually glad you brought up the movie thing because it's something that I had written down, but we ran out of time either last week or 2 weeks ago as a prime example. That was obviously before all this stuff went down, but to kind of add context to in case anybody was unaware, Sony has announced that that they would be I'll just read exactly what they said on the PlayStation blog. In response to shifting trends in consumer preference, new games will be released on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. As customer preferences and the broader entertainment industry continue to shift away from physical disc to digital, physical game disc production for all new games releasing on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January 2028. Following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. This transition has no impact on games that already released or will be releasing prior to January 2028. This is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to customer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. The transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. We'll continue to prioritize our resources to drive innovation in how players can access games and provide choices as to where players prefer to purchase new games, whether that's at retailers or PlayStation Store. We remain committed to delivering a world-class gaming experience to our fans, and we thank you for continued support. Now,
what a crock of shit.
Yeah, overall,
play does in fact have limits, as the internet finally pointed out.
That's what everyone likes to say. Now, Dan, this obviously set the industry ablaze. It's filled with outrage right now. People are angry. They are screaming at they're screaming at Sony, the industry, their fellow consumer. Some people are saying this is where they are officially done with gaming. Some are just done with consoles. People are screenshotting themselves with their physical media collections or PlayStation Plus subscription cancellations. People are looking for specific smoking guns and major causes, someone or something to focus their rage on or at least place the blame on. Some entertainers out there, Dan, streamers, YouTubers, and the like, that are using this moment to pretend they know anything at all, or just to take pot shots at things they don't like. You have one guy writing a multi-paragraph post about how nobody actually cares about physical media and we should be focusing on digital rights overall.
That is such a farce. So it's actually, he's partly correct, but that is still a farce.
Yeah, and then you had another particularly stupid streamer go the real extra mile and say, and I'm quoting this here, "Us being in this precarious position didn't just happen because things happen. This happened because people voted for very specific people." So taking shots at like the election 2 years ago. That's the reason why Sony decided to go.
What the fuck does that have anything to do with a company? Oh my god!
People have brain rot, Daniel.
This is so stupid.
It is. It's listen, the fact of the matter is how we got to this point. It's been a long time coming, because if you remember at the beginning of this generation, Sony was pushing for that. Xbox released the Series S as a digital only option. Sony didn't want to do a disc drive at all. They released a disc drive that requires an online connection of all fucking things. They've been wanting to do this for a long time, and they're using any excuse. My money on it right now is that they saw. They obviously had this plan for a while. I remember a couple of years ago they were already trying to scale back Blu-ray production. That was on a consumer side, but in general they wanted to scale back on that. But I think they wanted to do this for a while. They planned it for whenever the pre-order release date was coming for Grand Theft Auto 6, and they used that as a precedent to kind of push this through and try and soften the blow, which quite frankly didn't, based on everything I just talked about.
If you were a less than stable individual, you could really paint this in like a conspiratorial light.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even, like, honestly, if it came out like years later that it was actually some form of a conspiracy, that they were pushing for physical less media, like, I wouldn't even bat an eye at that. Like, it would just, it makes sense.
Regardless of the, like, whether they were directly pushing in this particular point, like, you got to remember, like, this digital only works out so well if they actually manage to, like, just do that as universal standard, because that gets rid of the afterhand market. It gives them complete control over pricing. It gives them complete control over the content in the game.
Let me pause you right there, because you just said something that was going to be one of my points, but I was obviously going to wait for you to finish. But I think this is less about helping the consumer overall and way more about control at the end of the day.
It is 100% about control.
Yeah. I'm sorry, continue. I just wanted to put that
No, I was pretty much just gonna go through the whole fucking list here, because it's more profitable for them. They can just price it however they want. It's beneficial for developers and publishers overall, because they have complete control over what is actually in there. It's borderline. It's about control over what you get, what it contains, how much you pay, and how long you have it. That's like the most telling thing, because obviously that movie thing, that was a little different, because that was a licensing thing. They just, it fell through. They didn't have
same but different, but still same.
Well, yeah, because the process ends up being the same, because the process is you not having what you paid for anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. The end result is the same. And this was a perfect part. This is a perfect time to get into my next point about this whole debacle. Is that this is less about like physical media and you like having a physical product in your home that you can just put into your console and play, and it's more about the DRM of all this shit, because as I'm sure you remember, Anthony, that many people may not remember, because the game itself was not a very popular game. It was really more about the symbolism behind what it meant when Ubisoft pulled this shit. I'm sure you remember The Crew. Yes?
Yeah, I remember.
So people have where do I even begin with this? So The Crew was a racing game that was published and developed by Ubisoft years ago. Like, it wasn't anything spectacular by any stretch of the imagination. It didn't look that great. Like, it was just another like kind of mid Ubisoft game. They printed a bunch of discs for it. People, obviously, they bought them. If you like racing games, people bought the discs for The Crew. And then a few years ago, they announced that they were basically taking The Crew offline. And even if you owned the physical copy of the game and you put it into your console to play it, guess what? It would not do a goddamn thing. The disc was basically just a symbolic gesture that you bought the license of the game. So this really it goes less to like the physical media aspect of it and more of really what you own at the end of the day in a more digital world where everything is all DRM anyway. You can own the hard copy of a disc, but unless the company decides that you're allowed to play it, you don't really own anything, which is really the issue that I take here. Like the discs, I love collecting this stuff. Like, as you know, I have my own little collection of like all my gaming statues and everything, and my handful of discs that I've accumulated over the years. While I would still be able to put those discs in whichever console they belong to and play them overall, there might be a couple, like one or two or three, that I put the disc into the console and it doesn't mean a goddamn thing. I still can't play the game. And that's really where the problem lies, is the fact that you purchased a product that you technically don't own, which is where the language gets all messy, because you're not purchasing anything. You're leasing a license code. And that's really where the problem lies, in my opinion. I absolutely respect the fact that people like to buy the physical media of their favorite games and have a collection over the course of their entire lives. And I mean, I'm in that camp also. It's not nearly as large as your collection or other people's collection that have been doing it for either the same amount of time as I have or longer. And especially in the past couple of years where I really switched all the way over to PC, where like all the games that I play now, they're all digital. But I can have one foot in both camps. My problem is the fact that when you buy something, you don't actually own it, which is really where it feels disgusting. And these companies draft their terms and conditions in such a way that you have no recourse as a consumer or a customer when you buy one of these things. You don't own shit, Anthony. And you know what? They're laughing all the way to the bank while they do it. Like, fuck Microsoft, fuck Sony, fuck Nintendo. Like, the only company that actually does right by their customers, and at least to a limited degree, I'm sure you know something that I don't on this front, is Good Old Games, who I think are owned overall by CD Projekt Red. I could be wrong on that, but I think that they're the actual owners of that storefront. When you buy a game from Good Old Games, you're not buying a license code. You're buying the fucking exe of the file, of the game itself. You own that product. You're not leasing it. You're not renting it. You don't have temporary ownership and rights to like play it when you want to within a certain time window. You own that piece of software. And for all the shit that CD Projekt Red has taken, and I'm sure that GOG has their own offices and it's their own company. They're just owned by CDPR. At the very least, like they are doing, they are. I hesitate to use this term, but it's the only thing that I have off the top of my head right now. They are the industry leaders so far in games preservation, and that is such an underappreciated part of the video game industry. That, like, look. My favorite games are games that are not of this console generation, that the vast majority of them will never make a comeback, and I just have to live with that. And the same thing with you. Like, Jak and Daxter is one of them, the Titanfall series, Mass Effect to a lesser degree, but you know, you can still play it with the Legendary Edition, even if you modded the OG PC client. Ratchet and Clank, at least like the originals that were, you know, head and shoulders better than the newer ones. Not that the newer ones are bad, but the originals were definitely way better. Like all these games, you know, Black is one of them. I fucking loved Black when it launched. All these games, you can't play them anymore unless you have the original console with the original disc, or you have some form of emulation, which these companies would love to eradicate if they had the chance. The point being is that games preservation is like, it's basically hanging on by a thread, and the only company that's really doing anything worthwhile about it is GOG, with the way that they handle their DRM, which is effectively no DRM. You buy the product, they give you an exe that you own, that you can re-download it at whatever time that you want. And if you don't have internet, doesn't fucking matter. You can run the exe, not have an issue. You can play the game that you bought without any problems. And that's the way that it should be, as far as digitally goes, in my opinion. So I'm sure you have a different way of looking at this, just because, you know, you and I have very different ways of looking at everything. I mean, which is why I think we work so well together. But anyway, go ahead.
I wouldn't necessarily say that I have like a different way of looking at it. I appreciate the things that GOG has done. I don't think they're necessarily perfect, but they are doing fine in the niche, the focus that they're in right now. I do think that to a limited degree, Xbox also deserves some credit for being the only one really doing backwards compatibility right now.
I would agree with that.
It's far,
yep.
it's far,
especially
it's far from
in the
perfect.
Phil Spencer era. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, you know, Series X, if I take that black disc from you and I pop it in, I can play some Black right now. So there's that.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I mean, it varies obviously, but I mean, my whole thing is like, because obviously you mentioned it, and it comes up often, obviously, whenever consoles or the people making them do something absolutely terrible or dog shit. You know, they always say like, oh, just do on the PC and, you know, get this on that, you know, emulate all this kind of stuff. And I agree with that, because ultimately, I guess ultimately all of this kind of put together really,
you shouldn't have to be an enthusiast to go back and play your favorite games. Like that's the issue.
That's kind of where I'm going with this, is basically like this whole thing kind of, I wouldn't say shows or leads to, but like it's hand in hand with the way that as me as like somebody who goes out and buys and play these games. It's like it's always been a pipeline for me. It's like, if it's a game I'm really, really interested in, I buy the physical copy, and then I have that physical copy, as long as it has a disc in it, you know?
Yeah.
The next step from that is, like, I'm kind of interested. Maybe I get it when it's on sale. Physical, digital, doesn't matter. All that matters is that I'm paying less, right?
Which will never happen. We are officially getting into like the next standard of price bracket.
Like I said, on the topic real quick, it's just like there were so many comparison shots of like, you know, if you want to go buy, you know, you go to Amazon, you go to your secondhand shop, you can buy a game, be it, you know, relatively new or old, somewhere between $10 and $25. You go to the PlayStation Store, it's $79.99, you know, that kind of thing. But like it, and then, you know, the step beyond that is like, you know, if I'm not too interested, or if I'm sketchy about the people making it, or some other thing that's causing me to hesitate, maybe it's like I wait for like the $10 or under, or I just pirate it, and stuff like that. And it's like,
that's another sentiment that's been really making its rounds, to absolutely nobody's surprise. That basically goes back to the old saying, if purchasing isn't owning, then piracy isn't theft.
Yeah,
and I really have not agreed with that any more than in this past week. Like the shit they're trying to pull, basically on the grounds of control and control alone, it's really just unacceptable. And as the core gaming community, it really is on us to put our foot down and stand up to this, because it's not going to happen any other way, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just, but this is all to say is like, that's how I handle my purchases and stuff like that, and it's for that reason. But like, this shouldn't, like, that kind of pipeline, it's not like it's not like the fucking Underground Railroad of video games. That's not where you retreat. You can't cede ground to these companies, because then they'll just move to the next rung. You know, let's say I'm skeptical to see if we'll actually get to the point where there is a healthy game industry that survives on digital only. I mean, I'm sure they're not concerned about health, but let's just say hypothetically we get to that point, right? 2029. There's no more physical releases ever. Let's say this hypothetical situation, right?
Yep.
There's no more physical releases. Everything's digital. Where do you think their sights are going to be set on next? Is there going to be restricting on just digital overall, be it the PC or the consoles? And then from there, there's just going to be like, well, now we need to protect our investments. We need to go harder against piracy and emulation. Like, it doesn't, like, the control aspect of this, it doesn't stop when they get what they want. It never stops when they get what they want.
And that's
like,
really the ultimate point here. And that, like, you could not have put that any more perfect. It's not going to stop. You know, Sony is ceasing all production of physical, and ironically, Sony and they collaborated with Philips. They were the fucking ones who invented the CD-ROM in the first place, which is just poetic, honestly. You know, it's really not going to stop. You're absolutely right. When they get rid of all physical media, and sure, there's still going to be stuff out there in the wild for the collector and the enthusiast. Everybody else that doesn't care as much about this, it's just going to be another thing that happens, and the DRM is going to get way more aggressive and a lot more prohibitive. At the end of the day, it's really just the consumer that's going to suffer. And you know, I'll tell you that there have been more than a few people in my immediate circle and in my social media that have posted or have told me that like they're done with Sony. They're not going to be buying the PS6. You know, it was a good run, but if this is the way that it's going to be, then they're just not interested. Which was like ultimately the basis for my hypothetical question earlier, because going off of your point, it's definitely not going to stop. And the only thing past disc or all physical less media is not owning a console, not owning a PC, or at least not owning like a gaming PC, and just going to be subscribing to a to a gaming streaming service. And like, where do we go from there as the gaming industry? There's really not much other places to go. The only other place that I could think of is just the death of gaming. And the only way that this is ever going to stop is if the core gaming community votes with their wallets. And, you know, we've had this talk ad nauseum. It is such a hard battle to fight because you're talking about like convincing each and every person on an individual level to not buy something that they might be interested in, that they really are looking forward to, for an altruistic cause. And that is such a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I do think it's just the one of the key things is that obviously they're gonna. I think they're still gonna be selling boxes with digital codes in them, much like Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be. So it kind of it's
and that's offensive, by the way. That is just so offensive.
They're still trying to ease people into it because they know it's a very unpopular thing, you know. So it's just kind of ties into what you were asking about before when I brought it up. You mentioned it's like 80% of purchases are digital, that kind of whatever that number is.
Right, yes, I wanted to know how this was fudged.
So those numbers are fudged a little bit because you need to consider it counts on all digital titles, regardless of scale or price. So if me or you, let's say the both of us, we go out to GameStop or whatever, and we both buy one game each, right?
Right.
There are people out there at that same point in time buying 30 digital games that are either on sale or only cost $1, and that cancels out, that in 30 times over it cancels out what we go to buy. That's the kind of stuff that's in there. So it counts all digitals, not just mainline stuff. It also counts on legacy games that are only available on modern platforms in a digital form. So obviously PlayStation's kind of been shit in the bed with backwards compatibility. If you wanted to play an older game, you would need to buy it through digital. You can't just put your old copy in there. And the other thing to consider is like we don't even need to really speculate on what like the breakdown is because of those Insomniac leaks from like 4 years ago, if you remember those.
Refresh my memory.
So there was an Insomniac leak where they basically showed all their incubating projects, their upcoming ideas, how much things cost. That's where we got the number there. It's like that Ratchet and Clank game cost $400 million to make, way over budget. That's where we caught wind of that canceled Spider-Man Live Service game. But in there was also logistics and breakdown between physical and digital versions. Dan, what do you think the breakdown is for, let's just say, Sackboy: A Big Adventure? What percentage do you think was physical purchases and what percentage do you think was digital purchases?
Well, I would assume it's either 50-50 or it's slightly more on the digital side of things.
77% physical, 23% digital.
Wow, okay.
Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, 76% physical, 24% digital. God of War Ragnarok, 76% physical, 24% digital. Ghost of Tsushima, 71% physical, 29% digital. All of the big
so they're just
titles,
fucking lying.
Yeah, that's why I said the numbers were fudged. It's relying on all this shovelware sales, low cost stuff, which is rare.
They're literally lying with extra steps. Exactly. Unbelievable. I mean, look, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised by the actual breakdown of the numbers, sure, but I'm not surprised in the slightest that a giant corporation like Sony would bend and manipulate the data to tell me, the endpoint consumer, that it's 80% digital and 20% physical.
Yeah, it was more consistent in the PlayStation 4 generation where it was like 85% to 15. It's trending a certain way, but it's not in the, 20 to 80, let's adopt it now. This is just, they're pushing it for all the reasons we talked about before. They're lying about the numbers to do so, and it's just wildly unpopular, but that's where we're at.
I am genuinely curious to see what the reception to the PS6 is going to be, because I think the current rumor is that they were planning on announcing it in 2028, ironically, when they're going to end all physical media production. But especially now, since this announcement, right off the back of GTA 6 being all digital and Sony putting out that post about the licensing snafu with the movie digital libraries, I'm very, very, very curious to see how the reception to the PS6 is going to be. Because while I think that the reception is going to be a very negative overall, it's not like Sony is going to be the only company to do this. I think
yeah,
Xbox is very closely following them. We're going to hear about something very soon.
Everybody wants this. Like, there are very few. They exist. There are altruistic publishers and developers out there that are against this, and many have spoken up already. But as far as like the big three, the guys making the consoles, Sony absolutely wants it. Xbox definitely wants it too, but knows they have less, play.
They have a lot less goodwill to burn.
Exactly. They have a lot less wiggle room. Nintendo, I think Nintendo would very much like to ditch physical too, but I think they would be the last ones out. I think they would be the ones going, look, you can go and buy your cartridge and plug it in and it just works. Like, I think that they would be comfortable living as the only one because they're not reliant on Blu-ray discs. They just do cartridges anyway.
Right.
It's actually funny that you bring up Xbox. There were three relevant bits of news pertaining to what we were just talking about. The first one was obviously Sony ends physical disc production, and then the second one was Xbox Helix rumored to not have a disc drive, and then the third one was
I heard about that.
Yeah, and the third one was Xbox testing a disc to digital plan, which we'll get to later.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
I want you to guess which one of these the industry was most loud and vocal about. Not the people like you and me who are just talking about it or entry level creators. I'm talking journalists and insiders. Which one of those three stories do you think they were the most loud and vocal about?
I would probably have to assume that it's the Xbox's strategy to convert physical media to digital licenses.
Nope. The most widespread news of the week was Xbox Helix rumored to not have a disc drive. The industry has such an incredible slant against Xbox, they basically can't move, which is good in a way. While I think most of it is bullshit, it really just goes to show if you pressure a company, they will like freeze up in whatever plans they want to. It's just, unfortunately, Sony again has that weird prestige things around it where people think like PlayStations are like celebrity status items and buying $100 games is like good for them or something like that.
Last week we were talking about the GTA price reveal, and like you really get the game for $100 because they're restricting all this shit in the $80 version. And you were saying how people were taking to social media to say that like you should be glad it's $100 and like it's a status and blah blah blah. Like, fuck all the way off. Like, that is such a retarded opinion. I can't even put it into words. It's so dumb.
Dan, according to those people online, you're just a broke bitch for not being able to spend $100.
Look, motherfucker, I can afford $100 game. Doesn't mean I want to pay for it.
Yeah.
God damn.
Geez, I've never seen like an industry more whipped, and there's multiple reasons to it. Like, we've been talking about digital production, and we didn't even really talk too much about game collection. We talked a little bit about it, but like obviously there's also people. You have a bunch of people running their mouths like, you haven't considered this is the way we need to go because disc rot. Like, what do you mean disc rot, motherfucker?
Fuck off.
You know how uncommon disc rot actually is? It's incredibly uncommon. So
I can still take any one of the games that have been sitting on my shelf for the past 25 fucking years from the PS2 era, pop it in a PlayStation, and I guarantee you it would work perfectly.
There are people that have their DVDs from the earliest days of DVDs and laser discs from the earliest days of when that was a thing, and they just work today. You just gotta take care of your shit.
My movie collection is far larger than my physical game collection at this point. And they are all kept in perfect condition, and if I put them into my Xbox, they would play no problem.
Yeah. I'm bad in a lot of ways. Like, I keep a lot of my stuff nice and neat, but there's some things where it's just like I'll have a desk. No, like my collection is nice and neat and orderly and safe. Occasionally, I will take a disc out and I'll just leave it out for a long fucking time. You should never do that. But somebody pointed out, like, there's no like reproduction of a lot of these games. Like,
define reproduction.
Like, the Criterion collection in movies where people just like they reprint movies on DVDs and you can go out and buy them. Gaming doesn't really have that.
That's a good point.
It's done.
Well, in the same way that years ago when Sony put out the Uncharted collection or the Jack collection, you bought it on I bought them on PS3. That's what I had at the time. Yeah. But it's not like they they're not going to reprint it for PS5 or the Series X or something. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's a great point.
The closest you have are collections and like limited run games. If you want to like go with them, like
what's going to happen to limited run games now?
Or I'm sure they have industry insiders. I'm sure they'll be finding that. Maybe you'll be paying $150 to limited run games if you want a physical copy with nothing attached to it.
You'll pay hundreds of dollars for the packaging and everything, and then inside the packaging is just a fucking printed code.
Yeah. So I guess the bottom line is like, you know, they're making their move. I don't think it's as shut as people think. I think this is the most aggressive they've ever been about it. People are pointing out that their largest, like, people were doing and glooming. They're like, oh my god, they're repurposing their factory to make micro lenses. Micro lenses are important for AI, by the way. I don't know if anybody knew that, but people, yeah, it's basically it has to do with CMOS image sensors and shit like that. Like, it's important for AI. That's where they're hedging.
AI is literally ruining everything, Anthony. I can't fucking take it. It's
but anyway, so people are doing about that because they're like, oh my god, they've already repurposed the factory. They're never gonna. First of all, there's more than one factory that produces these discs, you moron. Second of all, it's just. You just got to push back. Show them that you aren't having any of it. You know, there's plenty of people who, you know, like I said before, they're showing like they're canceling PlayStation Plus, which is getting ready for another price hike, by the way. And they're like, I saw one guy put his entire PlayStation in like a wood chipper or something.
Okay,
like people are
just being dramatic.
Listen,
I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but like, relax.
Yeah. But it's basically, it's just like, listen, you just got to push back against this. Every single time this happens, they will try to make it look like it's irreversible. They will try to make it look like you are hopeless, because when you are hopeless, you are complacent. If you don't like something, don't put up with it. Get loud, get angry, get whatever. Ignore all the insiders, ignore all the publications and stuff, because they are on the side of the industry too. All those people telling you is like, it's a done deal. I heard so and so say about this. You should just lay down and buy the PlayStation. Like, no, fuck off. Just put your foot down.
Well, and that actually reminds me. So with all this news circling in the gaming zeitgeist right now, with the death of physical media. And I mean, in just like the overall bad way that the industry is in, I like, what happens when they increase the floor of how much an individual video game is going to cost, and then presumably when the new consoles come out by 2030, I would assume, and they're going to be close to, if not at or above $1,000, plus the fact that they are getting rid of discs, plus the fact that they're raising the price of overall games. Like, people, and I know we've talked about this before, but it really is worth going over again. People are literally being priced out of this hobby that we've all fallen in love with, that can stir up all kinds of emotions when you playing through like a very deep and rich story of a game, or is giving you that dopamine hit of like going on a kill streak in like Call of Duty or something, or, you know, insert any cool moment in any video game, right? And then combine that with the fact that consoles are just like, I know inflation is everywhere and everything, but consoles are just getting to the point where the average person just cannot afford it when you stack it up against groceries, rent, and gas. And then, not to mention, if you have kids, that is just a different type of financial black hole that will just never go away, and you're never going to choose video games over your children. Like, and I'm speaking for myself on an individual level, but also on a macro level with everybody else. Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense anymore of like you running out to buy $1,000 console, and the games in each game cost $100. And then you don't actually own anything. There's no more discs anymore. So even if you like to collect this shit, you don't even have that option. It is really becoming a dystopian hellscape in video games. And like, not to sound dramatic, but like, I think about this a lot, because out of all of my hobbies that I've had throughout my years, video games have been genuinely the one constant for the past 25-ish years. Like, that has been my thing for as long as I can remember. And like, we are now staring down the barrel of an industry that will do anything and go out of its way and at every turn to fuck its consumer and customer. and make it to be this unattainable status symbol, and it's going to cost thousands of dollars to get into. So, okay, do you remember like 20-ish years ago when you and I were like really becoming like very close friends, and you know, I had an Xbox, I think you had a PlayStation, and then it eventually got to the point where we both had each console, and I think you even had the Nintendo consoles, right? So you extrapolate that out to X amount of years. Now you got to worry about being an adult, paying for the rest of life, and if you still want to experience all of video games in all of its forms, you have to buy 3 different consoles, right? And then each console is going to have their own set of exclusives that you're going to want to play because you bought the fucking thing. And that means that every console is going to cost, let's just assume, baseline $900 on the conservative end of things. If you want to go like really above and beyond and cast a wide net, let's assume that on the high end of things, the consoles are going to cost like $1,200. You're talking about like at minimum, just about anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000, not including the cost of games themselves. Who is affording this? Who is dumping money into this? It is not good for anybody. And then with the loss of physical media, that means that all these physical storefronts like GameStop and Best Buy, and even your local mom and pop video game shop, they can no longer afford to pay their employees, right? So then what does that do to the economy? And I know I'm being a little bit dramatic here, but it's still measurable. It's important. Like we're just we're heading towards this cliff that nobody seems to have any interest in turning left or right. And these companies are pulling us with like fucking Chinook towing helicopters that they could just fly away, right? And we're left holding the bag, and we're going to go right off this cliff. No one is going to be able to afford anything. And these companies are going to make money hand over fist. And the way that the terms and conditions are drafted, you are completely and utterly powerless to do anything about it. And then you as the consumer, you're the asshole. So sorry, I really just ran with that one, but like I think about this a lot. And it's really depressing. It's really fucking demoralizing.
I get you. No, I mean, as far as where it all goes, I mean, it doesn't go somewhere pleasant. Everything has a fucking breaking point, you know?
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Realistically, if we were smart, we would be talking about, I don't know, like cutting cost in the industry to like salvage some of this stuff, you know? The only thing that's absolutely unprecedented, like, you know, like we talked about how we got here to this point to begin with, like how are we talking about all this stuff? The only thing that is unavoidable for the industry, the only issue of all the small issues, all the 1,000 cuts that we could count up that got us to this point, is the AI crisis. That's the only thing we can't avoid. Budgets being as large as they are, we can avoid that. The quality, we can avoid that. We can avoid so many problems.
Well, we couldn't avoid COVID, and that caused a huge expansion in a lot of different game companies. Because,
well, yeah, you can't. But here's the thing: is like something at a certain point, you just stop spending that much money.
I know, but that's part of the problem. For almost over a full calendar year, people were locked in their homes doing nothing but playing video games and watching movies, and these game companies were seeing this unbelievable exponential growth in profits. And the biggest one that sticks out to me, and not to bring it back to this again, but it's Bungie. When COVID was going on and everybody was stuck inside playing video games, everyone was buying different video games because we were just eating up the content like it was a never-ending well. Bungie said that they were opening 2 new studios, they were hiring all these new people, they were expanding into other forms of media. They were just spending ungodly sums of money to develop to develop whatever they were going to do, even though they only had 1 game that was out at the time. And like I'm sure Bungie isn't the only one that's guilty of this, but the fact remains, like, you know, you say that AI was something that was unavoidable. COVID was, in my opinion, something else that was unavoidable. Yet all of these like bean counters and pencil pushers lack the foresight to see that obviously this fucking money well is going to dry up once this crisis comes to an end.
That's what I'm getting at, is like the entire everything that relies on technology being like basically brought to a standstill by this new emerging technology is unavoidable. How you handle, a post-lockdown, attention economy is completely avoidable.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I agree. I guess I was just angry about it. That's why I ran.
No, I get you. It's like, listen, I understand why it was an issue, right? It's because the executives saw dollar signs and they wanted to chase the dollar signs until it was painful. Realistically speaking, if you were an executive, and obviously there's some hindsight in there, but obviously as these executives that get paid millions to run these companies, it should have been like, people are going to be locked in their houses for a while. Look at these numbers go up. Let's do investment for like the next 2 years and then wean off of it. But instead, they've basically been like, everybody's playing chicken. Like, who's going to bail out of this first? And because of that, everybody's overspending. And at the same time, that money is all going to the wrong place because most of the developers suck and most of the people are driven by like weird cultural shit. So they're making crappy games. And then you have companies, going back to that, Bungie, who they saw the writing on the wall. They're just like, we need to learn to underdeliver so that people aren't expecting too much from them, but they're still making the same amount of money. So it's like, but what I meant by all of this is like, that it's an avoidable thing. It's just, are they going to avoid it? No, because they don't know what they're fucking doing. Everything else has like a fixing point, but nobody wants to do it because the first person to do it, their bottom line is going to take a hit. They're going to have to admit they're wrong in certain areas. Nobody wants to do it. It's avoidable, but if nobody wants to avoid it, we'll just reach a really nasty breaking point, and that's just how it's going to be. Because it's a while ago. I know I brought it up. I'm going to bring it up again because it's just that on a larger scale. We talked about Call of Duty skins and stuff like that, right? And the prices of the skins were going up. People like you and me who would maybe spend like a very small amount, nothing crazy on like one skin that we enjoy or whatever, we got priced out because we're not paying $20 for a single gun skin or like mini battle passes. Imagine that on an industry scale where everything's just more expensive, but at the same time, because you're pricing people out, you're getting less money going in, or you're just barely breaking even. It's like consoles cost way more than they should, so less people are buying them, but you're still not breaking even on the console, so now you just have less people buying, which means less people are invested, and it's going to drive people to really, really stupid points. And the entire time, we're going to blame everything but the issues that we can fix, and then worst comes to worst, if nobody wants to fucking straighten up and fly right, as Dan asked me at the beginning, what happens if this, or that happens, I will sit here, I will sit here, I will emulate, I will pirate, I will do whatever I need to, and if I really wanted to, with everything behind me, everything on to the side of me, I'm good for like the next 20, 30 years at least, and that's if I don't.
Are you sure? That's a long time.
There's more media, like, people, this is exaggerated a little. There are people out there who's like, there's more media than you could consume in a lifetime in video games. I think that's kind of bullshit, but at the same time, I can make do,
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, the only other thing I feel like I didn't really harp on enough is that with all digital stuff is you run into one of my favorite topics, censorship. Like they can just go back and change and manipulate, even if it's a brand new game. They can just really mess with anything that they want in there. Just thought I'd get my licks in with censorship just before we move on. But so that's pretty much all we have to say, I think, on Sony's move against physical media. It's bad overall. It serves no real purpose. They say it's about chasing customer trends. That's bullshit.
No,
they just want to force it that way. And you also need to remember that, like, the way that digital in general was sold to us all these years ago is that, it's like, oh, it'll be cheaper, we remove the production costs. That's bullshit. The only one really doing that now,
it's only gone up.
Yeah, I think Nintendo does like a $10 difference still for certain purchases where the digital is slightly cheaper. But that's like a new thing. That was never really the case. And it's just now, if we go all digital, it'll be not only is the price not any cheaper, but now it never goes the fuck down because, I'm sure Sony gets a little peeved when they see Amazon or other places selling their amazing third-person action game of the now for like $20 instead of $80. or 70, I should say. So that's, just overall, just make your voices heard, put your foot down, and get ready to bunker down if things get
I just
worse.
remember, it's not about helping you. It's about controlling what you do and do not own. Exactly. And that's ultimately what it's about at the end of the day. These companies don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about how you want to consume your media. They don't care about anything about you. They just don't. The only thing they care about is how to maximize profits, which, it's a business. You have to make profits. I get that, sure. But every single move that these companies make, almost exclusively, is just anti-consumer after anti-consumer move, time and time again. And like, at a certain point, we're the ones that are the assholes for continuing to not necessarily support this stuff, but to not speak up loud enough every time something like this happens.
Yeah, it's I've said this time and time again. I feel for the average consumer that does not like it, or that is ill-equipped for when companies do something scummy. You should never, like you mentioned, it's like you're really feeling it now because it's your hobby. It's something that's affecting you because it's the reason it's affecting you is, aside from the fact that it's just bullshit overall, it's not something you should really need to worry about with your hobbies. I said this about plenty of other issues that we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about month after month, but it's not something that you should need to worry about. So it sucks when something like this happens, and I get it. But yeah, at the end of the day, regardless of what reasoning, and I've given you plenty, whether content, pricing, profits, ideological reasons, all these different things. At the end of the day is they want control. That has nothing to do with what the consumer, what's good for the consumer, as you said.
Nothing, and it's all disguised in a shroud of "we care about you," and that's the kicker.
That's just the case. Although for this one,
play has limits, my friends.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is that, ironically, they were willing to just come out and say, like, oh, we're chasing customer trends. It's not even like it's easier for you. It's like, oh, we see what you're buying, and then they just lie about it. Now, Daniel, as much as I would love to move on from Sony and talk about something else, I don't think we're going to get to everything I have listed on the itinerary because I don't feel like being here for more than 2 hours. But one of the other things that Sony did.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that was a really big topic we had.
It was, absolutely.
That was very important.
Absolutely. So, Daniel.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention one little thing. When I read off the physical production ending thing in their blog post. At the bottom of the blog post, in italics, it says,
"Oh boy."
For important updates on PlayStation Store for PlayStation 3 and PS Vita, please click here. So how about this, Dan? Let's take
that's right. Yes, I knew about this. Okay, let's take a little look-see. A little looky-poo.
Changes start this year in select markets, followed by global changes in 2027. This is also by, I didn't mention his name before, Sid Schumann. Very important. His pronouns are he, him. It's listed right here. We both need to know important. This. I forgot to list this before.
This article would have been
insanely insensitive.
Otherwise.
Exactly. Senior Director from Sony Interactive Entertainment Content Communications. He wrote the other one, as I said. After nearly 2 decades of supporting PlayStation 3 console generation, we wanted to let you know we will be closing the PlayStation Store on PlayStation 3 as well as PlayStation Vita. PlayStation Store on PlayStation 3 will close in select markets starting this year, followed by global closures for PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita next year. That means new content purchases will no longer be supported once the PlayStation Store closes on these devices. To ease the transition, players will still be able to download previously purchased content after the closing date for the foreseeable future. As the PlayStation Store continues to evolve, doesn't really seem like evolving, but whatever, to support modern commerce systems, including updated payment processing standards, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita are no longer able to support these updates at the level required. Bullshit. As a result, we will need to close the PlayStation Store on these devices in the timeframes as follows. Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua will be August 2026. Latin American and Middle Eastern countries will be late 2026, and all other countries will be July 2027.
I find it funny that they specifically target these regions that probably don't bring in nearly as much revenue as like Canada, US, Europe, like all the the heavy hitters.
Well, going back to the control thing again, it's like there's a lot of licensing issues in those areas where it takes a while for games to get there and be relatively available. So this could just go back to the control thing too. But anyway, we know this news may be disappointing to PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita players who hold a special place in their hearts for this generation of gaming. PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita represent an important era of our PlayStation history, so this was not an easy decision for us to make. As we continue to expand the PlayStation experience on newer devices that most of our users are playing today, we need to focus more resources on delivering the best gaming experiences on these platforms as we look ahead towards the future. To our amazing players who want to give our blah blah blah, yeah, whatever. So PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita store are going to be closing by the end of this time next year, essentially. It'll be closed across the board. And so there's always a discussion when these companies shut down. I guess what you could say is antiquated. I'll be honest, the cost of maintaining these systems is so astronomically low. I can only really see this as malicious. And it's really just a matter of preemptively squeezing more customers either out or upwards to newer products so that they can get more money out of them in the future. It should really go without saying that, aside from the fact that it's just not good for customers, I understand if it's an older one, there's going to be a lot of digital-only products, such as, just full game releases or downloadable content and expansions and stuff like that, that'll just no longer be available ever again. And there's also a great deal of games from PlayStation's legacy and back catalog that their last ever official release was as a PlayStation Classic. And obviously those PlayStation Classics... What?
I just said, wow. Like, I remember the PlayStation Classic line, and I just haven't heard about it for so long.
I'll be honest, the PlayStation Classics was an amazing lineup. They were on their A game back then when it came to preserving and offering those options. It's a very robust catalog. It alleviated for me, as one of the few people who owned a fucking Vita, it alleviated
hey, I had a Vita.
Yeah, it alleviated the kind of, I guess, lacking library, you could say, because there were so many options. They made that shit work right immediately. I had PlayStation 1 games on there. Fun fact, PlayStation Vita and PlayStation TV is actually the best way to experience the original version of Silent Hill 1, because it has the best loading times. So that's cool. But yeah, so there's going to be a ton of stuff that either had their latest release on the PlayStation 3 and Vita through the store, or just was available on there and in general through the store. Games like that one expansion for Infamous Festival of Blood. That's not available on any
vampire one, right?
Yeah, the vampire one. That's not going to be available. There was an HD version of Ratchet Deadlocked, only available through the store. The only console port of House of the Dead 4. There was a tie-in to one of those smaller games. Loco Roco was on there. There was obviously the very popular, wasn't really for me, but I know why people liked it, but Fat Princess was another one. That was a surprising success story for PlayStation 3 during the early days. And I think it was specifically because it was an example of a digital, easier to pick up and play game through the digital storefronts. But yeah, there was also, I mentioned a couple weeks ago, Vanillaware, their game Muramasa. There was some exclusive DLC on there, some stuff for Wipeout. I don't have the full list in front of me. Obviously, we'd be here again all day talking about it, but that's just, it's wiping out an entire catalog of games that are only available digitally on an older platform, and also a bunch of expansions.
Fucking break into my house and take those.
Exactly. Like, that's another thing that we didn't really get to when we were talking about it. It's like, don't worry, it's convenient for the consumer, but at any point, be it, when it's convenient to you or them, they will just rip it out from under you, and you will no longer have it. And you'll have people online saying, just buy Grand Theft Auto 6 for $100. Who cares about these older games? How about the people who paid for them? But I think the real thing that like really bothers me is really just the fact that obviously there are logistics out there where not everything can last forever, but most of these things, like, I don't know, like, I get nostalgia. I didn't even have the PlayStation 3 at first when it first came out. You know this. I borrowed it from you for a while.
Yeah,
I
it's true.
get
Yeah.
heavily nostalgic for like the PlayStation Classics catalog. It is such a nice. It is an example of like all the digital bullshit we were sold on for years, of all like the conveniences and the niceties of digital, right? It all kind of came together for PlayStation in their back catalog, because you could put in whatever the fuck you wanted into the console, and you had this robust catalog of digital games, and it was just nice. So it's interesting that they back to back they announced no more digital going forward in 2 years, and I mean no more physical going forward in 2 years, and also that one time we actually nailed digital, we're gonna just shut that down. All right. So that's everything from Sony. Dan, my throat hurts and I'm lightheaded. If you would like to carry us through some smaller news or something, I'm fucking dying.
Yeah, sure. Okay, some smaller news. What do we got? We got a gameplay reveal, or a larger gameplay look at this new like MMO FPS. No, I'm sorry, not FPS. This like MMO. I don't know if it's a looter shooter technically, but it's called Cinder City. And oh my God, Anthony, does it look like shit? I think so. Like visually, it looks fine. I'll say the audio in particular just sounds like complete fucking garbage. I also don't really know how this game is gonna function. It just kind of seems all over the place. It almost looks like a weird mixture between the Division and the First Descendant, or the Last Descendant, whatever the fuck it's called. Yeah. Actually, it's in my play catalog here somewhere. But anyway, it's just like I believe it's a Korean developer. It takes place in Seoul. I'm not really sure what it's going for here. Like they say they have a very heavy emphasis on cooperative gameplay and like gameplay mechanics and stuff like that. It's called The First Descendant, not The Last. But what I saw from like the 5-minute trailer, or maybe it was 8 minutes or whatever, it did not impress me one bit. It does not look like something I would sink a bunch of hours into. The gameplay does not look fluid at all. It's also one of those games where like you can shoot from the hip in third person, but then like when you ADS, you go into first, and for whatever reason, this is a personal nitpick for me, that just bugs me. Don't really know why. No, I do know why. Like, pick one. Are you fucking first person, or are you third person? Like, I can't stand how they flip-flop between the two. That's something that really agitates me in Helldivers, by the way. Like, I can't stand the first person ADS view in Helldivers. It really just irks me, but that's a personal nitpick. What other small thing do we have? I don't know anything about the Persona live action show. I'm sure you know a lot of it, but we'll tag that on at the end. Payday 2. So very fascinatingly, Payday 2 is getting a complete engine upgrade. Now, Anthony, you might be asking, Dan, why would Payday 2 be getting an engine upgrade when Payday 3 is out? Well, Anthony, I'll tell you. Yeah. It's because people love Payday 2 way more than 3, because they really botched the launch of Payday 3. And as I'm sure you know, when you botch the launch of a game, that is a first impression that is extremely difficult to come back from. Now, they are still making improvements and adjustments to Payday 3, you know, to their credit. They're trying to bring the game up to what it was back when Payday 2 was in its heyday. But for whatever reason, Starbreeze, I think it was Starbreeze, they put out this short video with like the director of like the director of engineering or something like that. They are doing a complete engine upgrade to Payday 2. So I found that very fascinating, because the studio clearly sees that people are more interested in 2 than 3. While we're talking about this, let's just check the player numbers for Payday 2. So Payday 2 right now is at 33,000 players, which is actually a very respectable number for a game, not only as old as it is, but like it was very niche to begin with. Payday 3 is sitting at 1,600.
Well,
yeah,
it's not
huge difference.
At least it's not in the ground dead, I guess. I wasn't really impressed with it, Payday 3, so I'm not really...
I'm just saying, like, you know, usually the sequel will have way more players than the predecessor. But Payday 2 is clearly way more popular, way more profitable because people still buy the microtransactions for 2. And they are still pumping out content for Payday 3, which is, that's never really a bad thing. But yeah, Payday 2 is getting an engine upgrade, which is something no one really saw coming. I don't even play the Payday games, but I pay attention to them because they are adjacent to all the other games that I frequent. So I still keep an eye out on it. Beyond that, we got a huge patch for Battlefield 6. They made a ton of different gunplay tweaks and gameplay changes where, previously the hitboxes for enemy soldiers were it was either the head or everything else. But now there are limb multipliers, there are leg and torso multipliers, headshot multipliers will be higher than everything else, obviously. But now there will be a gameplay difference if you are shooting somebody in the arm, leg, or torso as opposed to the head. So that was really, really nice. Changes to the way that weapons behave with recoil adjustments and bloom and recoil patterns overall. They went in, they touched a bunch of weapons. We're still waiting on the map overhauls for the worst maps in the game, which are admittedly pretty bad. But it was a 30 gig patch. It was huge. So that's something that happened this past week. I was playing a little bit of Battlefield before we started recording, and the gunplay definitely feels better overall. There's more nuance to it now, which is nice. As a player, if you're shooting an enemy player in the toe as opposed to the torso or the head, it is unequivocally going to take longer to kill that player as opposed to pre-patch where it was basically the same thing from anywhere in the body versus the head. So that's something that happened this week. So that was pretty much all of the small news for the week. I don't know anything about the Persona live action show. If you want to talk about it, that's fine. If your voice still needs a break, then that's cool too. It's up to you.
So I mean, it's a pretty small thing. So I'll just get it out of the way. So you're familiar enough with Persona. You know what it is when I say
I
Persona,
know of its
right?
existence. Yes.
Yeah. So it's it's a JRPG. It's one of the bigger ones. It's been around for a long fucking time. It's a spin-off from Shin Megami Tensei, another, not as globally big, but it's still very popular JRPG series. Really kicked off with 3, 4, and 5 all have extremely large and vocal fan bases. 3 is considered one of the best PlayStation 2 games ever made, one of the best stories in that particular area. And it's been decided, for some fucking reason, Netflix swooped in and they said they're going to be doing a live action version. It is going to be done by the guy.
You're probably thrilled.
It was going to be done.
Here we go. Let me guess. Devil May Cry or Castlevania?
No.
Which one?
No. That's psychotic schizo maliciousness. This is just bullshit Hollywood stuff. It's being done by the guy that did Star Trek Picard. Of all fucking things.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
God. Look, I don't even like Star Trek, but I know from the outside looking in, Star Trek Picard was terrible.
Yeah, so this whole thing is just fucking weird to me, Dan, because here's the thing. The Japanese have this, I don't want to say like infatuation, but they have this weird trend where they actually do live action adaptations of a lot of their stuff, be it anime or games or whatnot. Persona, in particular, already has a few animated movies, an animated series for each individual game, by the way. I'm talking 3, 4, and 5 each have animated series and movies around them. They've done stage plays. There's a precedent for different media adaptations of this. I do not trust Netflix with fucking anything.
Definitely not.
Every Netflix-led anime project they've done so far is dog shit. It looks awful.
Speak for yourself on that one. I know you have your reservations.
What do you
mean? So I don't really watch a lot of anime. That's not really my thing. However, I will say, and I'm not even talking about video game adaptations, but there's a handful of anime series on Netflix that I actually really, really enjoy. The 2 that come to the top of my head, right now as we're talking about this, the first one has nothing to do with video games. It's Blue Eye Samurai. That show was excellent. I really, really enjoyed it. The second one, and I know you have your opinions on this, but we're not gonna go into it. Is Cyberpunk Edge Runners. I am actually rewatching it right now. I really enjoyed Edge Runners because I was
gonna hit you with the...
Look, I said
I was
wasn't.
gonna, no,
We're not getting into it.
no. I can't even get into it. I was gonna hit you with the question I ask everybody who says they like it. Like, what can you tell me about the story? And I met with like a glazed over stare because everybody just remembers how flat. I know you're rewatching it right now.
I'm rewatching it. The story is what stuck with me. Like that was the one thing, because I like the universe like to begin with. That's neither here nor there. But the actual story of David and the journey he goes through in that show, that's really what gripped me from the beginning. So like, because I remember everything from the show. Again, it's why I really enjoyed it in the first place. The fact that other people that you talk to can't really tell you anything about the story is kind of mind-boggling to me. Because I thought it was really well done, especially in the finale.
It's not a universal. It's some people. Like I do have a few people who are big into like Trigger, the company that actually handle it. Like regardless of my feelings on Cyberpunk, I don't really. That's Netflix is basically bankrolling it. It's handled by a very talented and well-renowned studio in that particular field.
I'm not into anime at all. So like when I watched Edge Runners and then Blue Eye Samurai, like they were both very well done. I was really into them.
Are you excited for the second season?
Well, I watched the trailer the other day, and it follows a completely different cast of characters, which is fine because the way that the first season ended, like there's no way they could they're not continuing that story. Obviously I'm interested because I enjoyed the first season so much, but I'm not like there's no hook just yet. The only hook is the fact that it's a cyberpunk show. But I'm sure it'll if it's being ran by the same guy who did the first one, then I have faith in it. But beyond that, I'm not like the only reason I'm excited for it is because I enjoyed season 1 so much. Other than that, I know nothing about this new season.
Okay. Well, anyway, to my point, what I was getting at is Netflix, as far as handling live action adaptations of anime, they've been basically at a zero. They've done this like quite a few times. Obviously, there's the infamous Cowboy Bebop one that they did. There's a lot of other niche properties that they've adapted into a live action setting. And to your credit, to what you said about Cyberpunk, ignoring the fact that that's more like direct animation, which isn't necessarily what I'm talking about. It was written by it wasn't written by somebody who was with Netflix, and it wasn't produced by somebody who it's not produced by Netflix. They were just, I guess, maybe producing is the good word, but they didn't create it, I guess you could say. It was handled mostly by the studio in question, which had such deliberate control over it that like when CD Projekt Red and the writers saw some of the designs, they're like, hey, could you change this or tweak this? They said no, and they delivered it as is. Like apparently CD Projekt Red took issue with how the character Rebecca was designed, and like, no, just leave her as is. And I'm just like, all right, that's kind of cool that they have that level of creative control over it.
There was nothing wrong with that character's design. She was
well.
Perfect.
It depends on who you ask, because there's a lot of prudes out there that don't like how she looks. That's just how. Well, then
fucking go play the Cyberpunk game and tell me what else needs to be redesigned, because you're clearly missing the entire fucking point of the universe. Sorry,
but my point is, it's Netflix is getting a guy to do another live action anime adaptation, which is probably going to suck. A lot of people are joking around where like Persona as a series has a lot of people around it that kind of constantly nitpick about all like the anime-ish things around it, and they say like, well, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like. They have they have a longer list of things they don't like and nitpicks they have than things they actually like about it. They just like being around it because it's a popular name. You would ask, why would you sit around and play it if you don't like it? Got me. So like what everybody's joking about is like, hey, this live action thing done by this fucking guy that did Star Trek Picard of all things is probably going to be more representative of all those nitpicks than they will ever get out of the games proper. So I guess it'll be interesting for that, but it's going to be horrendous. That's my guess. The only thing I'm curious about is whether they're going to tell their own original story, because Persona is an anthology series, or if they're going to adapt one of the games. And more than likely, if they adapt it, they're just going to adapt Persona 5, because that is the popular one. Well, 3, 4, and 5 are all popular. 3 has that niche, like, ooh, you had to be there in the PlayStation 2 days, or isn't it cool that you know about what this is? And 5 is the one that got fucking everybody into it over the last 10 years. So We'll see what happens with that.
Not
But that's a train wreck waiting to happen. I mean, to be completely fair, Dan, I mean, like, it wouldn't be. It's in neither of our wheelhouses. It's a live action adaptation handled by a Western company. Who the fuck wants that? Not me, not you. Who the fuck? Whatever. But yeah, that's about all I got.
You said you didn't want to be here for 2 hours,
yeah,
but we still have like half our fucking block to go through.
I'm not. I'll save that for next week. I don't feel like talking about it. I just ranted about Sony. You think I want to talk about?
I got time. If you know, whatever you want.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about this one thing just because I have been pushing it off for like a couple weeks. Like this was on the docket for like 3 weeks, and I just keep pushing it off.
Arxis threatens to make things.
So everybody who knows me knows at this point I just have nothing but a bone to pick with this company at this point because they've lost so much like interest and goodwill with me over the course of like 6 years. It's not even funny. But yeah, so I think you might remember this last year. Arc System Works did an Arxis showcase. Do you remember that?
I remember you talking about it. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you.
Well, to be fair, me talking about it is about the only thing that's memorable about it because I basically it was like 45 minutes of them just like basically explaining that they might have something to show later. Like there was like one thing announced. And the way I describe it, because the whole point we're talking about it now is they did another one. You know how there's been like what's the best way? It's like an annoying trend where companies say they're going to show up to an event. They show up at the event, they show a handful of teases, and then tell you to stay tuned for an entirely different event that isn't all that good either.
Yeah.
And all of them run for like 40 minutes apiece. That's basically what happened. Like last year, they basically said like, oh, we're gonna have more things to show later, and this year is when they showed some of those things, but also just teases. That's what it feels like to me. Only this time, Arxis remembered that nobody gives a fuck about anything but their fighting game properties, so they brought some of those announcements too. So basically, like Arxis showed a handful of things that are very, very forgettable. Like they're doing a new RPG that looks like something that Namco crapped out, and like you don't get what I mean by that, but Arc System Works is known for their like advancements in 3D that looks like 2D anime.
Okay.
Namco is known for buying the licensing to anime and then just churning out whatever the fuck they have, like for arena fighters and shit like that. It looks more like something Namco made than something Arxis made, which is bad when your one claim to fame that people will hound you online about is like how good the games look. It's an RPG. Who the fuck knows what it's going to be like? They told me nothing. It didn't look interesting to me. They have this other game, Donatal. I don't even know how to pronounce it because I was fucking falling asleep while watching this, which is basically like Papers, Please, only it's aliens coming to the planet or something. There's some fucking, was it called Demon's Night Fever, which is like an SRPG. It's kind of like a Fire Emblem thing going on. Yeah, there was some other stuff there. They showed up more Dave the Diver. Everybody's favorite indie game, Dave the Diver, just shows up places. They showed off an update to the game nobody bought called Damon and Baby, which they crammed so many BlazBlue and Guilty Gear characters into to try and make interesting, but I'm pretty sure it didn't fucking sell anything. And then at the very end, they talked about the fighting games. Unfortunately, Dan, they didn't have anything going there, so they basically just reintroduced their new Marvel fighter with no new information. They showed artwork for the new Guilty Gear character and said, like, come back later, we'll show more about him. And then they announced, shockingly, that they would be molesting a fighting game franchise that was put on ice 9 years ago when the story ended with BlazBlue, and they're adding a new character to that. And that was basically all they showed. And it's just like, again, not every company needs a showcase, and Arxis has just demonstrated time and time again that they just don't like. Their products are getting worse, but they desperately want to be known for more than just the fighting game guys, and it's just like an ongoing embarrassment because like all the people that show up to these fucking events, they don't remember anything. I don't know a single guy that played fucking Damon and Baby, or like I think it would be embarrassing if somebody came up to me and said I played Dave the Diver. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? So I mean, I get, overall there was just like everybody was just kind of scratching their heads, like even the people that show up to like show up to people like me that just well, I like Arc Sith, and so they like everyone's just like, why did you do this again?
Why did you do this again?
Why did you do this? And then they're
doing it again. They're threatening to make new games.
Yeah, they later showed up to Evo and showed more shit, but it's very clearly that like they want to be taking all the fighting game stuff that I mentioned. They showed off here. They showed off like 4 different fighting game announcements that weren't even really announcements. Those were just like they're just like shit. We're doing another showcase. We're gonna split the Evo announcements in half. Show half of it here. Like tease a character that we'll announce later. Tease a character that people already knew about that we're gonna announce later. Show this game again with no additional content. Like that's all that they had. But they're forced to show it because nobody gives a fuck about the other stuff that they make. It would be depressing if I still gave a fuck about the company. It's like if I still gave a shit about the company, I'd be like, oh guys, come on. But it's just sad because they're appealing to this new audience that they're just like, oh perfect, Guilty Gear sold more than 10 copies like back in 2020. That's great. Are you guys gonna buy other stuff from us? No. Oh, okay. And it's just been a sad train wreck ever since.
Yeesh.
Yeah. So
all right. Well,
that's all I got. I don't want to. Yeah, I have stuff to say about Evo proper, but we're gonna save that till next week because that's a whole other kerfuffle.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I guess we should just move into Slice of Life.
Perfect. Go for it.
I go first. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What do I have this week for Slice of Life? Did I ever go over the Titanfall thing from last week?
Which Titanfall thing?
About that comment on YouTube that I found that was apparently from the environment art director for Titanfall 2.
Sounds familiar, but I don't know if we talked about it here on the podcast.
All right, well, I'll touch on that and then I'll go over something else.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I was watching. I honestly forgot what video it was. I think it was something to do with. It was like a Titanfall retrospective or something in that vein. But anyway, I thought that Titanfall, especially Titanfall 1, was like off of a heavily modified version of the source engine, which is correct. But apparently, in this guy's YouTube comment section, the environment art director for Titanfall 2 chimed in. Now, obviously, I've got no way of verifying this, but I'm just going based off of this guy's word here. But he worded it in a way that really makes it seem like he was in fact the art director. This is not Joel Emsley. This is the environment art director. Joel Emsley was the overall art director on the project for both games. I'll just read it verbatim. It goes, environment art director for Titanfall 2 here. Thanks for showing your interest in our work. All good feedback. I just want to give a shout out to our Skybox artists, 2Boy and Ethan Ayer. 2 did the 2D art at the end of the game. I'll let you make your own pun there. Okay. I remember him banging it out super fast at the end, scrolling and all. The guy is a beast. I forgot about the wing. Okay, this was in response to or relating to the final image that you see at the end of Titanfall 2 campaign, because it was a 2D image, like up against like a 3D skybox or something like that. So he was just explaining it. So it was made super quick, and then they were having a tough time lighting it. And then he goes on to say Titanfall 2 is a modified version of Portal 2, which I found very, very interesting, because obviously Portal 2 is running off of the source engine. Yeah. I just didn't know that they took Portal 2 and just heavily modified it and created Titanfall 2, which is fucking incredible in my opinion. Because those two games look absolutely nothing alike. They probably play similar as far as like how it feels to move around.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
they couldn't be any different.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, because there's a lot of cases where like when a project starts, they take like a large chunk of a similar game on the same engine to work as like a base level kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because I always knew that Titanfall 1 was running off of a modified version of the source engine, which is why the hit registration is so good. I just didn't know that they just took Portal 2 and modified it, and they made Titanfall 2 out of it, which is pretty crazy. I love that shit. The slice of life thing that I picked out for this week, is the fact that Modern Warfare 4 is not launching on Game Pass. So it's the same thing as they were doing this with another game also. Gears, was it? Or was it wasn't GTA, it was something.
I'm pretty sure Call of Duty is the only major thing that's being removed from Game Pass.
Yeah, so maybe it was that. So not so much of a slice of life edition then. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I'm planning on buying Modern Warfare 4 anyway. Everything that I'm seeing looks very promising. So we will see how that turns out. But that's really the only stuff that I got.
Very cool. So for me, Dan, it came from from two little posts that I saw throughout the week week and a half ish about, right. So let me find the exact post here. Hold on. Earlier at a certain point, I posted something in Slice of Life. It was basically somebody took a picture of that one mission from Red Dead Redemption 2 where like the gang raids the mansion where like allegedly like Jack Marston is being kept, and they're going in there, they're looking for answers, right?
Yep.
And this picture of that mission came with the statement saying, "Greatest mission in video game history." You'll get goosebumps.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I went off on a fucking rant.
Yeah, you went
on
off on a little rant with that. But my whole thing is, I thought to myself, I'm just like, isn't this the mission where both me and Dan pretty much checked out of the game? So that's the first thing. All right, like that's the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. That's silly to think about. But then
off the top of my head, like Affecting Cause, Titanfall 2, All Gillied Up, Modern Warfare 1, Suicide Mission from fucking Mass Effect 2. And Anthony, it was genuinely on my mind all goddamn day that day.
Yeah. A lot of good missions to choose from. But so I let that sit, I let that simmer. We had a little discussion. One of everybody's favorite journalistic outlets, one of everybody's favorite outlets, Polygon.
It's on the
comes
same
out
caliber as Kotaku.
Basically Polygon is just Kotaku. I hate all these places. Don't get what I'm about to say twisted. Polygon comes out with an article. The article is titled 8 years later, let's all admit that Red Dead Redemption 2 is a terrible game.
Yeah.
And they're getting eviscerated in the comments. Like, I'm basically standing behind a mob with like torches and pitchforks, and I'm just going, I don't know if I'd say terrible, but it's not all that great. And people are just going, shut the fuck up. It's one of the best ever. It's just because your dopamine receptors are burnt out. You can't experience slow moving, excellent. And I'm just sitting here going like, guys, I get it. Like, people love Red Dead Redemption 2 for a lot of reasons. Do you know how the community notes system works on Twitter?
I mean, I don't know how it works, but I know what it is.
Yeah. So there's currently a note being reviewed saying Red Dead Redemption 2 is not a terrible game. It is widely considered one of the greatest games ever made. Like, we don't need a note on an opinion. Let's relax. They're obviously rage baiting a little bit, or maybe there's somebody in there's like there's something in the water or something. But like, I don't know, man. It's not something that requires this much fervent defense. Like this post has 6.6 million views. People are just tearing into them constantly. It's like, I don't know, man. I think it's a well put together, competent experience. It's not one of the greatest ever made. I can't. It's not for me. So I just find it funny that I'm sitting here going like, I'm not gonna rush to Polygon's aid, but like, I lean more terrible than best ever. I don't know.
Yeah, so. I would agree with that also. It just, there was no attention grabber. It just got very boring.
For me, it's not even like an attention thing. It's just like the pacing was wrong. Like, because like, if you say attention grabber, the people would just say, well, Dan, you're just burnt out on TikTok. Like, I know you love your TikTok, Dan.
Yeah, I can't get enough.
Yeah, but I'm just like, I was not enthralled by it. The pacing was askew for me. Like, I can sit down and I can sit with some of the most, I guess, methodical games out there, older dungeon crawlers and stuff that you need to like take your own notes on a piece of paper with. I can do a ton of shit. I can't with Red Dead Redemption 2. It's just that artificial weight that just permeates through everything from the story to the action of the characters was just not for me. So I won't say I agree with you, Polygon, but I don't know. Somebody needed to say something, I guess.
Oh God! All right. Well, I guess that brings it to a close then.
Yeah, that's about all I've got.
Very philosophical episode today.
Yeah,
this week.
Yeah. We'll see what happens next week because
a conversation that needed to be had.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what happens next week because that's when we're supposed to get like a bloodbath of layoffs. Who knows? Maybe it'll be right after this. And on top of that, Sony has basically done a full social media blackout. I think they're waiting for Microsoft to start laying people off before they reintroduce themselves to polite society, so that they can just help the news cycle like sweeps them away. But yeah.
Not even surprised.
Yeah, until then, I guess we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, happy July 4th to everybody. This will obviously come out a little after July 4th. A big 250
years, baby.
Yeah, so happy July 4th. Hopefully everybody enjoys and has enjoyed at this point, and nothing terrible happens. You know, the day's almost not almost over. There's still a lot of hours left in the day.
Make good choices.
Yeah. Make good choices, have a lot of fun. I don't know, I'll try to at some point today, but yeah, that's all I got in me. That's it.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Same. All right, well, if you're listening, thank you. This was episode 113 of the Pregame Network Podcast. We'll catch everybody next week. So, see you around.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.